guys, Boxing Gossip here. As you can see, not filming from my usual location. Went away with the girlfriend this weekend, so yeah, wasn't able to watch the fights live last night, sadly. I've caught up with them. I've seen some of the coverage on Box Nation and also on YouTube from YouTube commentators, etc. So yeah, I wanted to put down my thoughts. Before I get into the main event, I've got to say, the star of the show for me was Zolani Tete. Fantastic performance from Zolani Tete. For me, he is one of the... I don't want to use the word prospect because he's obviously a world champion. Beat Paul Butler for the world championship and he's already a world-class operator. But in terms of his status and his recognition within the public eye, you know, he's someone who is not very well known, but he is one of the most exciting fighters, contenders out there. You know, for me, his performance in the ring last night against a guy with a 22-3 record, a guy who'd never been stopped, was masterful. When I was watching the performance, I was thinking of Zolani Tete as, you know, like a matador. You know, like those Spanish guys who fight bulls, and the bull runs at them, and the matador kind of steps to the side and wheels around them. You know, that's what he was doing. The guy, for me, is going to be a very, very tough guy to beat at this stage of his career. I know he had some losses 3 or 4 years ago internationally, and I know at one point I think he lost by TKO, so I don't know if there's some fragility there somewhere. But from what I've seen of him, he looks like a hugely exciting fighter, and he looks like a guy who's destined to make it to the pound for pound top 10 ratings. For me, he's that good. Hugely awkward southpaw. Very tall, long and rangy for the weight classes he fights in. Understand he can still make super fly. He's happy to fight up as high as super bantamweight if the fights become available. The guy's movement and judgment of range is world class, world leading. He can move around on his back foot, making people look silly. He's got the ability when someone rushes in just to like slip past them. It's almost, I don't know, like an eel or like a snake, you know. The guy will charge into the corner and he will escape through a gap that doesn't exist. You know, he really, it's like trying to trap water in your hands, you know. They just escape through gaps, and then he's escaped so quickly that the guy's coming straight at him and the guy's still facing forward and Tete's sort of hitting him from the side, you know. His range of punches is exceptional. His speed is exceptional. He's got an excellent jab. Superb straight left cross. What is really amazing about this guy is his inside game. You know, his fighting in the pocket. He manages to actually get the stoppage by slipping past the guy, pivoting to the angle, and then landing a sort of really, really crisp hook from inside the pocket, followed up by an uppercut. You know, a truly, truly exceptional fighter. If you haven't seen him, I urge everyone to check out Zolani Tete's performance against Gonzalez last night. You know, when Paul Butler was on the way up, I saw Paul Butler fight live a few times. I thought Paul Butler was destined to be one of Britain's top fighters. For me, he looked that classy and that skilled and that technically capable. But this Zolani Tete is on a whole nother level. He was talking in his post-fight interview with IFL TV about fighting Rigondeaux. And I know that sounds crazy, but this Zolani Tete is going to be a very, very hard man to beat. He has everything. Power. I mean, he stopped a guy last night who'd never been stopped before. Elite jab, elite movement. Some of his defensive skills, the way he bends at the waist to duck under punches, and how instinctive and snappy he is with that is spectacular. His head movement, the way he can slip shots, is spectacular. The angles with which he engages to minimise the risk of getting caught, you know. I think he's had something like 400 amateur fights, the commentator was saying, and he was crazy. You know, he says apparently he's 28 years old, and to have had that many amateur fights and as many pro fights, he's been on the pro scene, you know, for 9 years, I believe. I mean, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But this guy is a world-class fighter. And credit to Frank Warren for getting him on board. Credit for Frank Warren for signing a deal with him. Apparently Tete's planning to fight in the UK for the next 3 years. who knows where that will take him. The Jamie McDonald fight is an exciting fight. You know, maybe if he steps up, Quigg, Frampton, Leo Santa Cruz, Rigondo. This guy could beat a lot of them. He's that good. He is one of the most, I'll say it how I see it, you know. He is one of the most exciting talents I have ever seen. He is that good. He really is that good. He has the potential to be, a pound for pound superstar. You know, he's that good. If you haven't checked him out, check him out. What's his fight against Gonzalez last night? What's his demolition job with Paul Butler? He's a special talent. To be honest, I thought Zolani Tete was the most interesting. You know, I was transfixed watching him. He was far more interesting than the main event. The main event was, don't get me wrong, it was an okay scrap. I predicted, do you know what, I didn't look into this fight as much as I should have done. I predicted, and you can check this on my prediction video, I said a wide unanimous decision win for Terry Flanagan. And somebody commented, so shout out to that person, saying, have you not seen the odds? Flanagan's hugely odds on to win by knockout. And I actually hadn't seen the odds at that point, because I assumed Flanagan would be, you know, the favourite would be Flanagan UD. But, yeah, it seems like the bookies and the public were expecting Flanagan to win by knockout here. And I don't see that whatsoever. And I think this is where the public is giving Flanagan some stick, actually. Yeah, Flanagan's obviously scored 2 very, very quick back-to-back stoppage wins against Zepeda and Magdaleno. And I think that's made the public, who are largely new to Terry Flanagan as a boxer, fall under the impression that Terry Flanagan is some monstrous power puncher. You know, that's not the case. You look at his record further back, Terry Flanagan is not an elite level power puncher. He picks nice punches, he's got okay power, but he's not a brutal knockout puncher. So I was very surprised here that him to win by points was a long odds on favourite, and had I known, I would have definitely laid that on Betfair, because, you know, I didn't see this one finishing early. I saw this one going to stoppage. You know, Derry Matthews, he's a capable fighter, but as I said, he's got 9 losses. He's lost to a lot lower level of fighter before than Terry Flanagan. And whilst he has power, whilst he has a puncher's chance, you know, we've seen him outbox several times. The famous Tommy Quill fight's a good example. And whilst he had a chance, I guess, it was really hard to see. It was really hard for me to see Terry Flanagan getting beat here, and for me Flanagan to, you know, to win on points was an easy decision. And I liked Flanagan's performance. You know, I watched Ultratech Sports video, and he made a really exceptional point about how when you've got a southpaw who's rocking back and forward, and yeah, when they're long to begin with, and then they're rocking back and forward, and they've got that constant up and down, back and forth level to their game, they're going to be just so hard and so tricky to beat. And you know, that is very, very good comment from him. And you know, Flanagan is a tricky, awkward guy. You know, I know he got a point deducted for going low, and let me say, I quite like the fact that Flanagan was able to rough it up in there with a guy like Derry Matthews. You know, he's roughing Matthews up, he's sort of forearm getting involved. You know, you saw him hitting on the belt. You know, I quite like the fact that he's got a bit of grit to him. You know, for me, that's going to stand him in good stead for the rest of his career. And Flanagan, for me, is Britain's #1 lightweight. I rate him far above, yeah, Anthony Crolla, far above Luke Campbell, Ricky Burns at this stage. Let's put it that way. Yeah, it was a good performance for me by Terry Flanagan. But I think people need to remember what Terry Flanagan is. I think these 2 recent fights have given people a false perspective of him. Terry Flanagan's a defensively minded technician boxer with average power. You know, he's not someone who goes out and destroys people with knockout uppercuts every fight. And I think that's why people are a bit down on him, because they've seen the highlight reels and that's what they're expecting. But yeah, good performance. Derry Matthews, for me, is an opponent at a certain level. I struggled to get up for the fight because I didn't see it as a competitive matchup. And yeah, I like the fact that Flanagan showed grit in there. I had it comfortable win. Yeah, I was a bit hungover this morning scoring it, so I'm not going to read out my scorecard, but I had it fairly wide, let's put it that way. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the card last night. Credit to Frank Warren for getting Tete on board. Interesting to see where Flanagan goes from here. Right now, I think Flanagan is the pick of the bunch domestically, and he's a hard man to beat. He's a tricky guy. Let me know your thoughts on these fights, guys. Are you as high on Zolani Tete as I am? What did you make of the main event? did anyone cash in on Terry Flanagan to win on points? I wish I'd known. You know, having predicted it, I should have maybe explored that option a bit further. Let me know your thoughts. Hit the thumbs up button if you've enjoyed this vid, and please do subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.